Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it's time for breakfast with Blaha, and today I'm having egg whites and Diet Dr. Pepper. This one will get a lot of people. There'll be a lot of people who go, "Oh, egg whites, you threw away the yolks." No, I didn't. Egg whites are pretty much free. They're created because people use the egg yolks in baking. Egg whites are left over. I want the protein. People argue, "Oh my God, you're drinking a diet soda." Well, if you think aspartame is bad for you, you haven't done much research. Right? Actually, I'm going to say you've done zero. Done zero investigation. I don't have time for it. I'm just going to ban your ignorant ass. So, over to the point, let's talk about ignorance and dogma. One of the lifts that people have seen me incorporate with clients, with myself, stuff like that, is the goblet squat. And the goblet squat is an exercise that I at one time would have laughed at and thought it was silly. And I've seen other coaches who use it, like good coaches who have more or less admitted the same thing. Like, yeah, I used to think it was silly too. Till you investigate it, you look at it, you think critically. And if you're open-minded to what other good coaches are doing, here's the one thing I will say. If top coaches aren't doing something, you definitely need to be reluctant. Okay, that's a big take-home. It's a big take-home. In other words, if 5 or 6 really elite top coaches are saying, no, this isn't very good, that's a good sign that it's probably not worth experimenting with. So I'm not saying we need to be open-minded to anything. Because people, anytime something like this comes up, people will go, "Oh, you'll be doing above the knee rack pulls next." No, because that actually is a stupid exercise with very, very limited uses. And the uses it is useful for, I can find other stuff that works better. Right? Therefore, it kind of is the closest thing there is to a bad exercise. And I've broken down why. People say it blows traps up. Really doesn't do it any better than a deadlift. Deadlifts probably work better blowing your traps up. And I lift shirtless from behind. Sometimes people go, "Oh my God, your traps are way bigger than we thought they are. What do you do for them?" I don't know. Deadlifts. Pretty high on the list. I don't know. How about goblet squats? Goblet squats are a pretty good trap exercise. Which brings us to the point, meaning most good coaches say an above the knee rack pull is stupid. That's a dead giveaway. There's a problem. Goblet squats are used by a lot of really good coaches. And at first, I used to look at it and say, this is a silly movement. There's no use other than for maybe teaching someone to squat who can't get under a barbell yet. Once you get under a barbell, there's no place for this. Used to be my mindset until I looked at it. I looked at what other coaches were saying about it, experimented with it, and realized it changes the mechanics of the squat. Right? It's a movement that you can do with a few different implements, dumbbells, kettlebells, plates. It's a low skill movement. It is a lower skill movement than a back squat that can teach the back squat. All right, so we look at that and say, there's some use for novices there, but it's useful for anyone else. Yeah, it is useful there, particularly useful for teaching better squat mechanics, but what about certain lifters, like you guys have seen some of my really tall, lanky clients? Their goblet squat, they still back squat. We use it as a supplemental lift to build the muscles of the squat, right? It builds the muscles of the squat up. And it's going to be loud out there, the unfortunate nature of living in the city. 2 a.m. Changes the mechanics of their squat. It lets them utilize more leg to get better hip mobility, things like that. Right? There's a lot going on with it. It is also useful for improving hip mobility. It can actually help with improving it to make you better at squatting. What else does it do? It uses a lot of trap because you've got to hold this weight up, right? Tends to use that upper back a little more. And we do it with a very light load. That's kind of the thing here. We can do it with a light load. I'm not saying we shouldn't work up to get heavy. I mean, you can build up to 150 or 200 pound dumbbell or whatever, by all means, knock yourself out. That would be fantastic. But even then, that's not heavy compared to a back squat. Using a light load, it works the upper back, works the low body similar to a squat in some cases, for some builds a little more effectively. Right? But again, that upper back helps build things like traps. It can help build your arms. You know, we come over to arm work is something that I've noticed more and more, and I tend to buy into more and more, that you don't need arm work if you're doing enough certain big movements. You just don't. It's exercise economy. Well, think about the load and tension on the forearms, the biceps, the traps, right? It's a really useful, simple tool. Then how about as a conditioning tool? It's hard to get under a barbell to do conditioning work, but what about as a conditioning tool? High rep goblet squats to improve your lifter or your athlete's conditioning. You can do the same thing with a weight vest, right? You can do a bunch of squats with weight vests as part of a circuit, but you can do high rep goblet squats for conditioning. You can include them as part of a circuit. All right, we're on to something here. You're on to something as far as GPP. Because what are we? Are we just trying to only get strong? No, we're trying to get athletic. All right, it's a really useful tool. But I think the biggest uses of it is the way that it loads the lower body to work muscles of the squat and the upper back with a lightweight, easy to recover from, with an easier learning curve. And the mobility. Someone who's struggling to reach depth on a squat, it can help. It can really help with that a lot. So it is a useful tool if used correctly. What it's not a useful tool for is replacing the squat. All right? But as a supplemental tool, it's multifaceted. But again, we can't be dogmatic with this. We have to look at how other coaches are using these tools. Okay, we shouldn't just accept any silly random nonsense when I say be open-minded. And that's something that always needs to be clear here. You don't need to do every exercise that some goofball out there promotes just because they're an influencer. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.